So Caroline, could you fill us in a little bit on how the Homeless Network came about and how we can help as business and as individuals to help?
Okay, that's a big question, but basically since 2019, we've been approaching our municipality in Pietermaritzburg because we have no homeless shelter, and it's a population of 2,500 people approximately that have nowhere to go to find help or to recover or to get the respite that they need. And they shut down all the shelters in Pietermaritzburg in 2017. So basically in 2019, we started an appeal to get some kind of assistance from the municipality, willing to work in partnership with them, realizing that it was a bigger job than any one single entity could handle on its own. And we were told that we couldn't, as single separate silos, apply for a municipal building or for a shelter because they couldn't sort of appease everyone. So we had to get a unified voice and come together and make a unified appeal. And that's what we did. Is in 2020, we started at the beginning of 2020 before the COVID hit the fan. We actually started making a formalized group of people called the Pietermaritzburg Homeless Network. At that stage, it was called the Coalition to End Homelessness in Pietermaritzburg. And we submitted a proposal at the beginning of 2020 to the municipality for a shelter and a phased accommodation establishment for homeless people to receive treatment and also to receive restoration so that they could be re-established back into community as contributing members of society. And obviously then COVID happened and it was delayed, and in between all of that, the conversation sort of fell away. And then at the beginning of this year, we picked it all up again and actually formalized as a we were now registered as a company and in the process of registering as an NPO. And there are 26 different entities that sit under that umbrella, from all walks of life, from business to church, from political to just secular, little NGOs, whatever. All different sectors of the community have come together under the umbrella of the Pietermaritzburg Homeless Network, in the hope of establishing a shelter in the city.
Okay, so I'm just going to backtrack for a sec there. I know it's a crazy question, but why did the city close down the shelters? Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, what is the logic?
Jason, I don't know if you have special insight there, but
you've got to throw the cat amongst the pigeons.
I'll jump in there with that. I feel honesty doesn't hurt any real relationships. And unfortunately, I think what's happened in Maritzburg is there's been a large misunderstanding about the seriousness of homelessness. And as Caroline mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of separate organizations that are trying to tackle this problem. And they've all come at it from a specific angle, whether it was feeding or housing or restoration or whatever it was. And I think ultimately, you speak about divide and conquer. I think really that's what happened here. And with people not being here to support each other, no one's one effort was strong enough. And then also, a few people did run into issues in terms of capacity. And I think with that, the municipality just saw an opportunity to absolve themselves in a way of what is a really large issue. And yeah, unfortunately, the end result was that one by one, the institutions fell by the wayside. There was an instruction that came out during COVID that it had to be reopened. And that's where Kantha and I actually came into the picture, because we were part of the emergency COVID shelter that was instituted. And that was done by Unzinduzi, and it was done horrifically incorrectly. Their understanding of what needed to be done and how it needed to be done was really poor. And it went badly. And as a result, that was closed down as well. And at the end of the day, it's worked into a blessing now, because they actually have developed an understanding of why we want to do what we want to do, the way we want to do it. And they're now on board with us. It's a very horrible way for us to get to where we are. I do believe you learn by your mistakes. And I think a lot of mistakes have been made by the municipality and by some of the other people involved. But ultimately, I don't think that's going to be a deciding factor on our success, because we've been able to take what was good about all these different things that were done previously and roll it into our one concept and weed out the things that didn't work. For example, when the municipality did their COVID shelter, they thought that because people live on the street as they want, they could house them in the same manner. not realizing you need to protect the weaker individuals. You need to keep the sober away from the not sober. You need to keep the men away from the women in some aspects. And they put everyone in a building, and, you know, anarchy ensued. So yeah, I don't know if that really dives down into what you were asking, but I think it was just a whole confluence of a whole lot of different factors. There wasn't one root cause which caused the house of cards to come down. But I think at the end of the day, it has actually been beneficial to enable us to have a really strong foundation starting off, that we're all bringing in wisdom from what's already happened, and we will avoid those same pitfalls going forward.
Okay, well, I think that's brilliant. So we know where we are now, and it's always good to I just need a little bit of history to see where we were and then where we are now. So we now have a united front that's tackling the situation, and so what are we going to do to solve it, as opposed to blaming. Let's say, okay, let's fix it, which is what you do. So the shelter that you have in mind, why is that different to what you were explaining to us now? What is the difference?
Because, you know, one of the things that I'm particularly proud about, my history is running the Safe City Project, which is the camera project in Pietermaritzburg, which works with the police, the courts, the municipality, the municipal law enforcement, and all of that. So I've been involved with this from a law enforcement perspective. And then, you know, speaking for Kantha, she's coming from a business perspective. And then Caroline's coming, you know, from the hearts and the hands. So I think when you have a project of this magnitude, you basically assembling a warrior. And I've come in eyes and ears. You know, Caroline's come in hearts and hands. Kantha's come in with brain. You know, everyone's brought in a really, really valuable piece for free. And I point that out because had this been a paid job, it wouldn't have worked as well. We wouldn't have got the right people in. But that being said, we can only go so far with this. You know, as volunteers, there is a limit to what we can do and what we can give. And I think that's where Caroline has really spearheaded things here, being the heart and the hands for this, because for myself personally, you know, that's really the driving factor in what we're doing. So I don't know, Caroline, if you want to pick up from there.
I do. Well, thank you as well, Jason. It's a beautiful way of putting it. But if you look at a homeless person, Grant, you've got one human being who we worked out 6 or 7 different aspects of themselves that needs to be looked at. And so you've got the physiological needs, Maslow's basic lower tier, you know, you need your food, your water, your and clothing on your back. Then you need the sense of security and safety. Those are your basic Maslow bottom 2 foundation blocks in any human being's good psychosocial development, right? Then you need to deal with the fact that they're probably highly traumatized. They are impoverished mentally, spiritually, and physically. They are not educated in many cases to any level of employability. They need rehabilitation from addictions, and they need psychosocial and emotional support and counseling. So that's why we've come at this and said it's not possible to do all the things under one umbrella, as not under one umbrella, but as one organization. So as Jason alluded to, we're an NGO, we work at the feeding, the emotional, the this and that. We don't work with the drugs, for example. We don't work with the education yet, but other parties can come to the fore in this. And without having a shelter in Pietermaritzburg, there's nowhere for people to go and do that. It's very difficult to find a migratory society. And, you know, tonight Bob is sleeping on the corner of Loop and West, but tomorrow night he's sleeping on a different corner, and you can't find him again to do continual work with him. So this idea, the proposed shelter, which Ms. Nduzi gave us the building in January, we've not yet signed a lease agreement, but we've actually started work and preparation for the fact that it's going to become a shelter. The idea is that it's a full-phased approach, which is something that we haven't seen yet, and certainly not in Pietermaritzburg, but it's a safe space which is working really well. An organization in Cape Town called MES is establishing safe spaces with U-Turn Ministries. It's a low entry point. You come in, you sleep safe, warm and dry, and you can still use drugs, but not on site. Obviously, you can't break the law on site, but you can still be using drugs. You can still be in any state you want to be, but you have access to a bathroom and you have access to laundry. So as opposed to sleeping on the street, it's a few steps up, not many, but a few. And it's a warm, safe, dry place to sleep for the night where you might get a meal, you might not, if there's no one offering a voluntary meal that night. But once people have entered, that's phase one. Part 1B is during the day, there will be all these services offered, the psychosocial support, the support from the government departments that the homeless community don't have access to just by the fact that they can't get there. When they get there, they don't get treated well. There'll be a skills development and training happening during the day. And if you come to the safe space at night for phase 1B, you have a choice to participate in those daytime programs. Once you've qualified by participating in the daytime programs for long enough, you graduate to a bed inside. So here we've adopted the approach that works with the Haven shelters in Cape Town. It's one of the largest shelter organizations in the country. They've got over 6,500 beds. And the CEO of the Haven was actually here last year talking us through how the nitty-gritty of that works. And once you're graduated inside, it's phase 2, and that is you get a bed as a guest for 30 days. And as any decent house guest, you've got to obey some rules, but there's no necessary buy-in from the client. So, from your guest. So after 30 days, however, you've got to migrate into becoming a client, which means that you're actively working on your sobriety or your reemployability. So then you get a caseworker, then you get assigned to programs, then you actually have to be intentional about what your progress is, and that's phase 3. And that will also include preparation for rehab. A lot of our guys in Pietermaritzburg are addicts. We've seen a lot more sober people end up on the street with economic decline in the last 2 years, but prior to that, it was almost 99% addicts. And nowadays, there are a lot more people who are just really poor and they've now fallen through the cracks, so they're not full-blown drug dependent yet. But part of phase 3 will also be preparing people for rehab. And then once you're a client, you've also got to buy into the center by working there or by paying rent, but it's more likely that you're going to work there. And all of that is based on the fact that you don't respect something that you just get as a handout. And you've got to take some ownership. Even in the worst states, everyone who's read anything about addicts knows that there has to be some buy-in from the individual. And so that's what we're offering. Phase 4 is once you are rehabilitated, because we won't offer rehab on that premises. Once you're rehabilitated, helping you prepare for employability. And then that's why when we spoke to the municipality, we said this won't be a quick fix, walk in one day and walk out 10 days later and go back home. We're looking at 6 months to a year with each individual who comes through the doors and actually buys into the process.
All right, and it's pretty well thought out. I mean, I love what you're doing. On just looking at, we've got 3 people from the organization online at the moment. Who else is involved in the organization? How big is it? How deep do we go?
Well, this talks to I chair business fighting crime at the Chamber of Business, and so when we did business fighting crime started one of the shelters as well, and like Jason said earlier on, we learned what not to do, and that was one of the reasons why we fell apart as well. Apart from the fact that Msunduzi took the funding and redirected it somewhere else. So insofar as that, when we approached Msunduzi sometime later, they had told us to have everyone speaking with one voice. All the NGOs, all those people who are wanting to get involved in this space to speak with one voice. So hence the Homeless Network, which is not an exhaustive list at the moment. So currently we have the business fighting crime, which is now obviously representing the business sector. We have Mark, which is representing the residents and the ratepayers who are obviously getting affected as well. And then we have all the faith-based organizations, if I'm correct. And Safe City with Jason representing them as well. We also have, for example, the Department of Correctional Services, the Health Department in Msunduzi. So various organizations that will be coming up as service providers, Life Changer, for example. So we have these coming as partners, but like I'm saying, it's not exhaustive because there'll be aspects that others can provide that we're wanting them to come through to join us. We're wanting them to give off their skills and the experience to us to help, because it is a mammoth task. It's a phased approach. It hasn't been done, like Caroline has said. And I think the beauty of it is that because it's holistic, we are then hopefully bringing a person back into society who's going to be economically viable in society. So I think that is the approach that business are also keen on, is because currently the issues is so deep rooted, and it's an us and them at the moment with businesses, and they are getting quite frustrated. So I always tell them, when I motivate to them, that this is a means to an end. To get this shelter up and running, we got to have business giving that support, because it's a means to an end. If you don't want to have infrastructure taken away where the addicts are destroying it. Yesterday on the N3, I was approaching Ottman Road, it's an off-ramp. The guy had dismantled the sign, and he's dismantling the metal of the sign in the side of the highway. Nothing I could do about it. So, I mean, it's things like this that we need different skills. We need different people to come in and say, I can help, I can support, because this is going to help the whole of Msunduzi. And it surrounds as well. So, yeah, I hope I answered you correctly.
And I think you put it very, very bluntly that and nicely. How we solve problems is by giving and sharing, which is what you're doing here. Putting in your own time, sharing, giving back to the universe, and ultimately the people on the street, most of them, it's not their fault, and it's becoming more and more our problem. So we have to step up what we're doing and say, right, time to step up. What are we going to do? How can we help? And that's what you're doing. We plug into what you're doing, and it's incredible. So just going back to what Caroline said, there's a lot of that. We're responsible once we're in the system, but how do we sustain this monetary in the long term?
So running an NGO has changed a lot since we started Life Changer. So Life Changer started in 2017. So we're learning on the trot with this shelter development in the Pietermaritzburg Homeless Network that sustainability is key. And for that, we actually need clients and guests how to make beautiful jams and how to make lovely coffees. And actually, that'll be part of, obviously, the employment development, and run a little coffee shop in the picking garden, because it's a beautiful field right across the road from where the shelter will be. We also, we've been investigating different trades that the homeless people can get involved in, being taught the trade, and then actually working in that trade from the shelter as a form of income for the shelter, and giving them employability. Because the one thing is, you know, when you've got someone who is coming from a hugely traumatized background, the family that they form is the community on the streets. So you also don't want to chase them away too quickly, because that's who they want to, that's not necessarily their family, but it is who they want to be with, and their support and safety, and being with the familiar people that you know. So if we can find ways to viably sustain the shelter by using guys living there, it also gives their friends that little dangling carrot to say, I can head to where that guy is, and I can get a job, and I can be part of something good. And then, you know, if you've been trained as a welder, who knows what the next step is from the shelter. But that's where the skills development will come in a big way, and hopefully we'll also earn some income for the shelter.
Okay.
I want to pick up on what you're saying there, Caroline. You know, for myself personally, I'm going to sound a bit stupid now, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And I think for our project, really what I would like to try achieve just today is to get a message out there for those who could advise and assist and guide and help shape.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As an organization. You know, for an example, I've spoken to a fantastic accountant who is working like 16-hour days, and she said to me, you know, she will still come in and assist us with our finances. And I said to her, you know, I don't want to overwork the hard work donkey and kill this lady, but I do need that knowledge. So, you know, if an accounting company could adopt us, or, you know, a stationery supplier could adopt us, or we've spoken about our gardens, you know, if an agricultural company could adopt us, not to fund us and not to support us and not to become, you know, responsible for us, but to help shape, grow, and make sure that our foundation of what we do is strong. We don't have a lot of volunteers, And what really hurt my feelings was bringing people through the building and having them say, what you're doing is so amazing, but I have nothing of value to share with you. And I just thought, how can so many people feel valueless? Everybody's got something they can share. We had a lady in her 90s on her hands and knees in the garden weeding. Not because we asked her to, but she's like, she's a crazy garden person and she's going to go do that. And it kind of just dawned on me that what we really need is a many hands make light work approach. You know, instead of us trying to find one or two strengths and then hang on to that, if we could potentially have a whole lot of people just contributing a little bit, that would really, I think, also help sustain and push forward on the whole project. As it is, Caroline is fully employed running Life Changer. As you've heard, Kantha's heading up a few organizations. I'm fully employed, Graham's fully employed, Pili, and the rest of us all actually have daytime jobs and are doing this on top of. And I think what my appeal would be here is not for people to feel that although they support us in concept, they don't have anything to give. You know, maybe to reach out and just say, well, look, I actually happen to have 3 garden forks at home that I don't want. Could that be of use to you? Because we would need that. But also maybe to say, I have a gardener who needs work and is willing to assist you. And I mean, those are very silly little things. I'm also hoping for the big things where someone says, I've got a CSI budget of R1 million and we're looking to do something for ladies. And, you know, we can say, well, look, in our plan, this is where ladies fit in. And of that R1 million, we could maybe utilize 600,000 on what we're doing. Because one of my fears with this project is because we are so widely encompassing the association ills of homelessness, I don't think everybody fully understands just how far that net reaches. Caroline spoke of those that are addicted and not addicted. I've also had people speak about the elderly. I've had people speak to me about those under 18. I've had people speak to me about women suffering domestic violence. You can't expect a lady who is suffering domestic violence to come and sleep with an addict. And what we need to do is partner with someone who could do that. So although you might think I'm not involved in homelessness directly, it really does touch your life in some way, form, manner, or shape. And I think because it touches everyone's life, it sounds, again, I'm using very, very bad English. I'm giving my lack of education away here, but it touches all of our lives. I think we need to touch back. You know, as silly as that sounds, I think we need to acknowledge it and also put our hand on it. Because if we don't, guys, it's going to get worse. And it's not going to just get worse for the homeless, it's going to get worse for all of us. As human beings, we need to acknowledge humanity. I think that really is what I'm trying to get to here. It's not about where we are, qualification or financially or whatever. I think it's just the humanity of this needs to speak to the humanity of those that are hearing me. And hopefully we can link that up for the greater good here.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible, you know, you summed it up so, I mean, lack of English, education, whatever it is, you did it pretty well. So I don't know where you got your education, but they did a good job. But, you know, the whole approach of giving, you know, everybody has potential. The fact that we're sitting here, we have potential, and what we do and how we help. You know, I spoke to a client the other day, and he said to me that if we had to, you know, wait until we had to give, we would never give. So give with what you have. And it was such a profound statement, because if you think about it, your person always says, when I'm rich, I'm going to do that. When I'm that, I'm going to do that. But we start with what we've got and we start sharing, we're right bang on it. And that's what we need to ask people and businesses out there to do. You touched on the CSR funding.
No, CSR funding, absolutely. Look, we've got an estimated budget of R3 million needed for the first year of the shelter. And we're not quite there, not even vaguely there yet, to be honest. But that would include running the shelter for the first year. And as Jason said, it covers a multitude of things. So CSR can almost be justified in any avenue at the shelter. We aren't working with children. It's against the law for us to work with children. But other than that, it's almost every sector of society that will be coming into those gates. And it is an incredible, you know, it's an incredible opportunity for businesses to see how giving back to the street community will also benefit them. And I'm going to share a tiny little story, and that is there are two businesses or two buildings in town, and the one is where Lifeboat is, which is our little NGO that used to be in a really rundown part of Pietermaritzburg and really dirty street. And how we found the building was there were 16 people sleeping on the veranda, and we were out handing out goods for the homeless. And ever since we've been in that building, our street is spotless. No one defecates on our steps, and if they do, they get sorted out by the homeless community, by our clients. And I think that's the message that I'd love to get back, is that as soon as there's a message that there's a businessman behind those doors that cares about us, the street community starts looking after them. And obviously that's something that takes time to develop, but we've seen it again and again. And we're trying to change that dialogue as well in Pietermaritzburg with the Keep Pietermaritzburg Clean Victory on Victoria Road campaign. Is if we can find a way to actually empower the guys who are sleeping on the steps at night and help them and actually point them in the right direction, we'll see how they become part of the solution as well.
Yeah, I love that. Giving people a bit of self, a bit of pride, changes attitude. I just love that story. Oh, wonderful. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to wrap up. So if you just want to shoot around everybody and just give a call out to business and people out there, just a message to encourage everybody to get involved with this incredible network that you developed.
So our building is a bit difficult to find because Google Maps will take you to the wrong place, but our address is 2 Abattoir Road /30 Door Road. My number is 078-437-2378. Please, if anybody would like to come find out about what we're doing, I would love to meet you on site. I'd love to show you the dream. I'd love to show you our success. I think for myself personally, it really has opened my eyes and my mind and my heart to be on site, to hold in my hands that these are the keys to someone's future, to just show everyone around on site if they want to.
Magic.
Yeah, and I'd just like to reiterate what Jason also said earlier, is we want this to be partnership and we want this to be easy. So it's whatever you've got in your hands. You'll be amazed at the things that we need and the things that are necessary for the space. And it's from the most obscure little block of soap all the way up to security gates and security fencing and everything in between. And like you also said, Grant, we can give whatever we have right now. We don't need to wait for a right time or place. So there's an opportunity for almost anyone to come and be involved in what we do.
I echo everyone's sentiments that each one of us has something to give, whether it means you wanting to donate pillowcases to us or towels or your cups and saucers, because we need to make a home. We're making a home.
The network is also not closed. So we also invite anyone who wants to join us on this journey from that side, from the administrative side, from the advocacy side. The network doors are also not closed. And so we are welcome to, anyone is welcome to come and see. And the website is pmbhomeless.co.za if they'd like to get in touch through that as well.
It's just so many good things. You're helping from all. So you're not just putting up a building. You're coming with solutions. I love the way you thought it out. It's just everything is just so put together. So all we've got to do now as individuals of the Maritzburg, Greater Maritzburg area, Durban area, is get involved and help in whichever way we can. So I have put the details on the screen. So the Jason's numbers are on the screen as you're looking now, and the web address. So folks, get in touch with him. Let's make this thing happen. Let's make their dream come true and become part of our dream, our brag to how we've helped society.
Awesome. Thank you.
Ron.